Hi, welcome to SAP Product Costing lecture. So in this tutorial, we will discuss what is costing sheet in SAP. A costing sheet covers all requirements of the overhead cost inclusion in the product cost. Costing sheet integrates all elements of overhead costing. It consists of the following rows that are processed during the calculation. Base row. This row contains the calculation base. Calculation base is made up of cost elements on which overhead is calculated. Overhead rates row. This row contains overhead rates. Overhead rates contain percentage rate which is applied on calculation base to arrive at overhead amount. Total row. Used to form subtotal or total of earlier rows. No calculation is performed on these rows. Costing sheet involves setting up configuration for below components in SAP. Calculation base, overhead percentage, credits, and costing sheet. We will now log into SAP and define each of these components and then the costing sheet. Define the costing sheet. So the path for going to the costing sheet configuration is given. SPRO. Controlling, product cost controlling, product cost planning, basic settings for material costing, overhead, costing sheet components, define calculation base. So we have these two bases 19 AC and 19 MC already defined. Let's define, click the new entries. Make it 20 MC. Material cost, our company code AUM1. Save. Second base 20 AC. That will be activity cost, company code AUM1, and save. Now select the base 20 MC and click the folder details. Our controlling area is AUM1. Click the new entries button. So to the controlling base 20 MC, we would like to assign the cost element group which has direct materials. Let's do an F4. So I think let us go and verify which cost element group we can use. That's transaction KH2 this has two materials. Update it for company code AUM1, and we are going to add some more cost elements to it. One is 400-201 packing material, which was created in cost center accounting tutorial, and 400-209. So consumables have been added, and for packing material looks like it's still not created. So let's create this as a packing material. So one, it is the price difference account, so not required. $400,210. Well, that's the packing material cost element. And now save. So let's look at the updated cost element group. This is now for the company code AUM1, and it has these four cost elements. So let's assign this here, MATCEG, and save. So if we select the base 20 MC, click the detail folder tab. You can see cost element group, material, cost element group has been assigned to it. Go back. Now select the base 20 AC. This is for activity cost for the company code AUM1. New entries. So we create the cost element group DOHCEG, that is direct overhead cost element group. It's updated for company code AUM1, and we are going to add some more activity cost here. So the first one is setup activity cost, labor activity cost, machine activity cost. And then $943,003, and this is cutting activity cost. So the direct activity overhead group will include setup activity cost, labor activity cost, machine activity cost, and cutting activity cost. See, go back, copy the group direct overhead cost element group, and assign it to the base here, 20 AC. This is for the activity cost, direct overhead cost element group. Save now. Go back. Yes, it's correctly assigned. So the next step is now to assign percentage overhead rates. Click define percentage overhead rates. So click the new entries button. Overhead rate. we need to create new overhead rate. So 20 mH, that will be for the machine, material, direct material overhead, and 20 AH for the activity overhead. This is material overhead rate, activity overhead rate, and dependency F4 D20. Save. Now select 20 material overhead rate, click details, and we need to enter the rate here. So valid date, January 1st till controlling area is EUM1, overhead type F4, F actual overhead, and plant is so plant. We will use an existing plant 01 M1, percentage rate 10. Another overhead type. This one is for the planned overhead rate, percentage rate 10. Plant. Now save. Similarly, create overhead rate for the activity overhead. New entries, valid from 2, type 1, 2. And this time the percentage rate is 50. And save. Save, go back. So now we will define the credits. So in credits, you define the cost center which is credited with the overhead cost. So let's define the credit ID, new entry, 20M for material overhead cost, 20A for activity overhead cost. Save. Select 20M, click details folder, new entries, valid to cost element. So we will have to give a specific cost element, secondary cost element, which will get the cost of this overhead. So we will use 941,000 for the material overhead. So this secondary cost element will receive cost from the earlier cost elements which we have identified for the basically the overhead which will be calculated in the costing sheet. That amount will be received in this secondary cost element. And the cost center which will receive this cost is 3319,005. So this cost center does not exist. So basically we can give any cost center. However, let's create this cost center. Transaction code is KS01. Product costing. Product costing overhead cost. Person responsible on tech. Cost center category. Allocation cost center. Hierarchy. Let us select PRD_AUM. We might change it later. So the cost center has been created. Go back to the cost center. Even the cost element is not defined, we need to define this cost element. K01. The cost element. So this is secondary cost element. So transaction code is KA06. Cost element 941. And this is material indirect overhead cost. That's right. Cost element category is 41 overhead rates. See. Similarly, cost of 941,001. Activity overhead. Cost element category 41 and see. Go back. Now enter. Let's go back. Select material overhead cost. Valid to cost element 941. Cost center is cost element 941,000 has been assigned, and this is a cost element 941,000 has been assigned, secondary cost element, and this is a cost center which will collect the overhead product cost. Save. Go back. Now select the second credit ID, which is 20A, activity overhead. Click details. New entries. This time F4. So the other cost element for activity 941,001, and the cost center we use the same cost center. So with this, we have completed configuration of all components of costing sheet. In the next tutorial, we will use all these components to configure the costing sheet. Costing sheet, as we have discussed earlier, is used to calculate the overhead amount which is applied on the product cost to arrive at the standard cost.